everybody. Welcome to the study hall, y'all. Welcome to study hall, y'all. Welcome to study hall, y'all. Hello, everybody. My name is Wes Tank. Today I am studying, and I'm going to be talking with the author of The Extraordinary Adventures of Little Krishna. See? And his name is Mehendras Singh. Really nice guy. First, I'm going to make a little music. I'll read the book a little bit. What's up, Zachary? What's up, Nick? How's that tea tasting? What kind of tea you drinking today? I had some tea last night. I had some Egyptian licorice peppermint tea. It's quite good. Now I'm drinking my coffee. Of course. I tend to drink a lot of coffee. Especially in the morning. Go get your coffee, go get your pencils and your thinking caps. We're starting our study session. Really interesting book today that I'm going to be reading some of. Maybe we'll get the whole thing in there. Get the light on it. Yeah. There we go. The Extraordinary Adventures of Little Krishna. It's a very interesting little character. Almost like an origin story of a Hindu god. You don't see that as much. So I'm excited to dig into that. We'll ask Mehendra some questions. If you have any questions, please remember to throw them in the chat. Of course, if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer those as well. Oh, you're having dinner tea. I see. the dinner tea. In the UK, that's A-OK to me. What's for dinner? What's for tea? Give a little shot at the book here. So I'm feeling nice and warmed up. This is The Extraordinary Adventures of Little Krishna by Mehendras Singh. Shout out to Feral House for sending this book over with some nice chocolates. I very much appreciate it. Like to bring in lots of cultures and perspectives into this show. Scampi with chips. See you there. Yummy. All right. Long, long ago in India, a farmer, Nanda, and his wife, Yashoda, had a baby boy. They named him Krishna. Krishna didn't look like any ordinary baby. He had bright blue skin and a birthmark on his chest that looked just like a flower. He's blue. Every morning, his father and the other village men drove their cattle through the forest to graze in the pastures beyond it. Every evening they returned so that the village women could milk the cows. The milk was collected into large vats, and then some was churned into butter, and some made into yogurt and cheese. But they were always careful to leave some milk in the cows so their calves could also drink. Look at all those cows. Whoa! The forest and the fields around them were fertile, and the cattle grazed well and gave much milk, and the villagers prospered. As soon as Krishna could crawl, he began to get in trouble. He chased the calves when they were separated from their mothers during the day. He grabbed their tails and let himself be dragged across the pasture as they tried to escape his clutches. Neither the cow nor human mothers liked this. Man, he's just flying along. That cow. Whee! Whee! Oh, Krishna. Yashoda, your baby is upsetting the cows when we're milking them, said one woman. They can hear the children protesting when Krishna torments them. You must do something, complained another. And what kind of baby can pull calves by their tails, remarked a third. Krishna's mother knew she would punish him. But when she looked at his sweet face, so happy and innocent, she forgot her anger. Soon Krishna was able to walk on his own 2 feet. Now he could explore the entire village. And Krishna quickly discovered where the village butter and yogurt were stored in enormous clay pots next to the milking pen. He also learned that if you topple over one of those pots, all the delicious things inside would spill out. Krishna loved butter, especially if it was stolen. I can relate to spilling things, that's for sure. When the village women discovered who was responsible for their broken pots and missing butter, they were quite upset. Making butter and yogurt is hard work. Your Krishna is a very naughty boy, an angry woman told Yashoda. He's been stealing butter. We even tried hanging the pots so high that he could not reach them. But he piled up all the empty pots and buckets into a mountain, then climbed up to reach the highest pot. That's not all, said an even angrier woman. He steals sweets from my kitchen and feeds them to the monkeys. I saw him do it with my own 2 eyes. And the rascal pees on the floor of my house right after I've swept it clean, added another. She was the angriest of them all. Yashoda was embarrassed that her son was behaving so badly. But again, she was confronted by her lovely boy. With his enchanting eyes and charming smile, she forgot her anger. When Krishna was 6 years old, his father Nanda decided that he must become a cow herder like him. He made Krishna get up early in the morning, and together they drove their cattle to pasture. Herding cattle is a hot, dusty, and boring job. As soon as Nanda's back was turned, Krishna sneaked off to have some fun. What do you think he did? The forest was full of wild animals, yet none of them seemed to be afraid of Krishna, nor was he afraid of them. A peacock let the boy take some of his tail feathers to make into a crown. Some deer showed him where there were jasmine flowers to braid into garlands that he hung around his neck. Then a monkey led him to a pond surrounded by hollow canes. The clever animal broke one off and gave it to Krishna. It made a perfect flute. It made a perfect flute. Now he has a flute. Imagine that. And all the animals. Krishna was delighted. Here was an audience that appreciated his talents. As he played his flute, the forest animals gathered around him to listen. Enchanted by his music, both predator and prey forgot their differences. The tiger lay down by the deer, and the cobra coiled itself beside the mongoose, Soon even the village cattle forgot to graze and gathered around him, attracted by his divine melody. He made all the animals play nice together. But that evening, when it was time to milk the cows, there was hardly any milk. The village women knew very well it was all Krishna's fault. Once again, Yashoda tried to punish her son. But when she gazed into his adorable eyes, so full of love for her, she forgot her anger. The next day, Krishna was excused from herding cattle. He could play with other children instead. His mother warned him to behave. No more foolish pranks, she told him. Krishna promised to be a good boy and ran off to join his friends. An hour later, a little girl ran to Yashoda's house, out of breath with excitement. "Krishna's eating dirt," she shouted. She seemed rather happy about it, actually. Yashoda rushed off to find her son, hoping that none of the other women were watching. When she found Krishna, she pulled him away from the other children. "Your friends say that you're eating dirt. Have you gone mad?" she asked. "Ooh. I'm not eating dirt, mother," replied Krishna. "The other children are lying. Look into my mouth if you don't believe me." And he opened his mouth as wide as he could. Yashoda bent over to peer into it, and to her abasement, saw a whole universe inside it. Inside her son's mouth were 1,000,000,000 galaxies, each containing 1,000,000,000 stars. A small blue and white planet was orbiting one of the stars. There were brown and green smudges between the planet's white streaks, and one of them was a vast forest surrounding a tiny village. Wow, can you see that? Look at that. It's her looking at him. It's his mouth in a universe, and planets inside of the universe, and a town, a tiny village inside of the planet. What's this? Yashoda looked even closer into Krishna's mouth until she could see a mother and a child inside that village. The mother was also peering into her child's mouth, amazed by the galaxies and stars and planets she saw there. One of those planets was covered by a forest in which another woman was looking into her child's mouth. And what did that woman see there? Another universe and itself inside of the sun's mouth. Again and again, an infinity of universes. An infinity of universes. An infinity of universes. And Yashodas and Krishnas. Yashodas and Krishnas. Yashodas and Krishnas. It's like a feedback loop. She's looking into his mouth. She sees another mom looking into her son's mouth, and another mom looking into her mom's mouth. Whoa. That's wild. Whoa. Look at that. Wow. That's magical. Yashoda became frightened. Krishna wasn't just her naughty little blue boy, but a god in disguise. Only a god can keep a whole world inside their mind like a dream. Even though it was just a dream, Krishna was ashamed of frightening his mother. He flooded her mind with a love for her. He flooded her mind with his love for her, a flood that swept away all her memories of this accidental vision. In an instant, everything was as it had been before Krishna opened his mouth. But this time, Krishna did admit that he was a bad boy and he had been eating dirt. And this time, Yashoda could scold her darling Krishna. He promised to never do it again, and his mother forgave him because that is what good mothers do. And Krishna kept his promise because that is what good children do, even if they are gods in disguise. In fact, this is what they should do, especially if they are gods in disguise. But that night, Yashoda had the oddest dream. She saw her Krishna floating upon an infinite ocean, a many-headed cobra protecting him as if he had dreamed of a world long, long ago when Nanda and Yashoda had a baby boy, as blue as the sky above their heads. Wow. He's in an ocean. He's floating in the ocean. Look at that. And on the back page, there's a little message written in handwriting, and it says, I like to make books about gods who go too far and accidentally reveal the meaning of life to their unsuspecting mothers. Mehendras Singh. And that is the extraordinary adventures of little Krishna. And we're going to learn all about what that's all about. What a cool book. We're going to learn from Mehendra himself. He's going to be on the stream with us. Wow, very cool. Should we bring Mehendra in now? Ooh, we're a little early. We got the thumbs up though. All right. I'm just gonna figure out what my sound is doing here. Having a little humming. That was nice. All right, let's bring him in. Hey, Mehendra.
Hello, Wes. Can you hear me?
How you doing? Yeah, I can
Great,
hear you.
Thank you.
I'm just having some little feedback here. Maybe we can. Not sure how to get rid of that right now. Oh man, hey, great story. What a great book.
Thank you so much. And the way you read it with that music, it was really nice. I kind of like that.
Oh, thanks.
It needed that kind of. It needed a certain ambience.
Yeah, it's not your typical rappable book, but it did have a nice rhythm that I kind of found with the book, with the the way it's written, and oh, that's nice. I Heart Fairies says that book was beautiful.
Thank you so much. I Heart Fairies 82.
Well, thanks so much for being on the show today.
Pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Maybe to start, you can tell me a little bit about your message at the end here, where you said that you like to write books about gods that go too far and accidentally reveal the meaning of life to their unsuspecting mothers. So, Mehendra, what is the meaning of life?
What is the meaning of life?
We'll start with the easy one.
You start off with the easiest questions, which I appreciate, and we can build our way up. The meaning of life is to, for me at least, is to keep drawing and having fun. And I think actually, for most people, that really is the meaning of life, is just to live your life and not worry too much about the philosophical underpinnings of it. As far as the message in the book goes, the way the book is set up, the rhythmic nature and the way it curves back into itself, I was thinking very much of that famous thing from Blake, that line, if the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is infinite. So I guess you could say that in a way, the meaning of life is infinite. There's infinite possibilities, infinite pitfalls, infinite happiness, if you're lucky, infinite unhappiness if you're a little unlucky. And that's just about it. I mean, enjoy life, enjoy the infinity of life as best you can.
Love that. Enjoy the infinity of life the best you can. That's great. And well, first of all, let's back up a little bit from the meaning of life. How would you describe yourself as an artist?
I'm basically an illustrator. I've been working for about 38 years. I'm a pen and ink artist, mostly. So I draw with pen and ink, and I draw with the traditional pens. They look like this. Let's see if I can get this.
Oh, like a fountain pen?
Well, yeah, it's basically what the fountain pen was based off of. But this is just a simple little piece of metal stuck in a wooden stick. It's hard to do with this webcam.
That's cool.
There you go. And there you can see it. I'm twisting it around. And what you do is you dip it into a little ink bottle like this. And then there's a little rag. You always have a rag with you that I usually soak in Windex because the Windex cleans ink very well. Mothers should know this if their children start to draw with ink. Windex will do the trick. And you wipe it with your little rag. So every time you draw, you have to dip again in the bottle with the ink. The ink only lasts for like a minute at the most. So it's a laborious process and it's time consuming. And I got into it in the 80s, and it's what
Wow.
I like to do. I don't know why I like to do it. I just like to draw with lines. It's easier. Number one, painting is really hard. I don't like to paint. It's too
Do you
much work.
draw? Do you start with a pencil or do you draw with
Yes,
the ink right away? Okay.
yes, I do. I always start with a pencil. Give me 1 second.
Hmm. Wow. Are you in your studio right now?
Oh yeah,
Wow. Cool.
I'm in my studio right
A
now. And I
real
should have
artist
brought this out
studio.
earlier. Look at this. I can show you some of the drawings. For instance, here's one of them. The drawing of all the animals with Krishna. Started out a little hard to see, but it starts out as a pencil drawing on a kind of tissue paper. And you work on that a lot. Obviously you make tons and tons of changes and corrections.
Mm-hmm.
Then over that, I tape a piece of what's a special synthetic paper called Denro. Most guys don't use Denro, but I do. There's a long reason for that. It's actually transparent. When you look at it like this, you can see through it. And it looks like this. It's hard with these lights.
Yeah, I think we can see that.
Yeah, it's hard to show in this kind of light. But that's basically what I do. And then I scan it in and I color it in Photoshop because, like I said, I hate to paint. I'm not good at painting. I haven't picked up my watercolors in 20 years. That's what I used to do, was do it in watercolor. So it's basically pen and ink with digital watercolor.
Oh, okay. So do
Yeah.
you do that with like an iPad or something?
Yeah, I actually do it
So,
on a laptop, sometimes a Mac, sometimes a PC with with one of those pen stylus setups. It's actually pretty easy to do in the digital. It's easier to do in digital than it is in the traditional watercolor because you can always change the colors. All you do is
yeah.
have to hit a couple of switches and boom, your whole color scheme is changed, which makes life very easy for me
Yeah, it's
because I'm
really
terrible
yeah.
at colors. I'm really bad at it. And I think that's the reason why I got into black and white pen and ink, is it's just one less problem to deal with.
I hear that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a whole different ball game
Oh,
between
I
pen and ink
admire and
and
I'm
yeah.
envious of people who are good with color. It's a wonderful skill to have. It's a talent. It's a true talent.
Mm,
But it's a talent that I've never been very good at. I always had to force myself to do it.
mm.
And basically, I started out drawing animals as a kid. Animals have always fascinated me.
What
I
was
grew
your
up on a
favorite?
farm, and so I started drawing the animals, and then later on, I learned how to draw people and
Mm-hmm.
machines and houses. But my favorite is still people and animals, and anything outside, anything to do with nature and plants and sky and sun. I like that.
Would you, when you were a kid, would you look at pictures and draw them, or would
Sometimes,
you
yes, I
just do
would
it
copy
from?
them. Yes,
Yeah.
sometimes I would copy them. And in fact, I would advise all young people, if you're interested in the arts or you just want to have a good time,
Mm-hmm.
copying a picture that you like is a wonderful way to learn a lot about making pictures. There's nothing wrong about that. That's how all artists learn. All professional artists spend a lot of time studying other guys' work,
Mm,
copying it, sometimes stealing it.
mm.
And imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. But that's what guys have been doing since the days of the cave paintings, I'm pretty sure. So learning to draw or paint by looking at other guys' work and copying it is not a problem, and you should go right ahead and do it because you learn a lot that way.
You can kind of see the struggle that they went through.
Yes, you go through the same struggle
And
they went through, and you realize, gosh, that's how he solved it or she solved it.
oh man. Um, yeah, and yeah, when I was a kid, I used to draw pictures from magazines. I
Oh
would,
yeah, oh yeah,
like
yeah.
catalogs, like
Yes.
like clothing
Mhm.
catalogs or Sports Illustrated.
Yes.
I drew a lot of basketball players dunking, but you
Oh,
learn the
that's a tough
form of
one.
the body.
Yeah,
You
yeah, the
learn the
form of the body when they're doing those movements is very difficult to capture.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what illustrators call reference. In the old days, we actually would keep boxes and boxes of files of pages, like torn from magazines and catalogs. If you saw the picture of the guy doing the dunk shot, you would tear it out of the magazine. Everybody in the house would complain bitterly, where's the center spread on the Sports Illustrated? But you would keep it in a special file, and you would alphabetically file it under basketball dunk. Nowadays, with the computers, it's made it so much easier to accumulate digital images. But most illustrators, at least when you're realistic, when you want to draw something, even when you know how to draw it out of your head, it's not a bad idea to take a look at multiple photos of different angles and see what's really going on with that basketball dunking guy. There's little details you won't catch with your eye that you will catch with the camera. And the trick is, when you then make that drawing, when you're looking at the photo, is not to copy it perfectly, but to copy it so that it looks right to you. That's the real trick. If you copy the photo, you just wind up with a copy of a photo, which is a skill, and it's a step forward. But learning how to undistort what the photo distorted is the trick. Because the camera always lies. The camera always distorts the shape of things, the color of things, the depth of things. There's always something wrong with a photo. And when you make a picture out of a photo, you always have to squish it back into the way that the human eye can comprehend more easily.
Is that why they say the camera adds 10 pounds?
Probably. Camera always adds 10 pounds. That's why I'm wearing a black shirt. I look great in a black shirt.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I spend a lot of time with cameras and lenses, and it's amazing when you're doing someone's portrait what an 85 millimeter lens versus a 50 millimeter lens or a 35, how that changes the how flattering a photo can be, or an interview shot or something like that. And so I pay attention to that a lot. And then of course color and all of that. It's very similar to painting in a way. I mean,
it's basic. You're basically dealing with the same raw visual information as an illustrator, but you're forcing it through a physical lens and then onto either a charged device or a film negative or whatever. But the illustrator is doing the same thing by squeezing it onto a page or whatever they're using. But it's the same basic process. How do you make a picture look good to an observer?
So do you feel like you're more of an illustrator than a writer, or what do you do first?
I started out as an illustrator, and the reason I'm trying to get more into writing is very simple. For years and years, I did a very complex illustration style that was very time-consuming and very demanding.
Let me see if I can bring up a little bit of your work here, because you've done some really cool stuff before you did children's books. I imagine maybe this led you to.
Right. I don't have a lot of it. I have it all boxed up. Here's an example.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That Minecraft thing is a good example.
That's so cool. I bet a bunch of our listeners love Minecraft.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Minecraft was an amazingly complex portrait project to deal with. And as you can see, there's a zillion lines in it. And what happened in the end was years and years of drawing zillions of lines finally kind of made my eyes give up. And I had to switch over to drawing in a more simple outline style. And then I color it. And I also thought, well, maybe one way to also reduce the load on my eyes would be to write a bit more. I have written before, not a lot. I wrote a novel and some other kids' stuff, and it's all in the past. So I figured writing is fun, and drawing the pictures to your own writing is always a challenge instead of drawing the pictures to someone else's writing. And Adventure Time was another one I did. A whole bunch of guys. It wasn't just me.
Oh, okay. So what was the story with Adventure Time?
Adventure Time, I had actually done another book for Farrell House called, it's really not suitable for kids. It's called The Encyclopedia of Hell by a guy called Martin Olson, who's actually one of the guys behind Adventure. He was the voice talent who did Hunson Abadir in Adventure Time. And he did another Cartoon Network comic, a cartoon show. I can't remember the name. But anyway, he wrote a very funny satirical book about hell filling up with too many condemned souls. So Satan decides to expand onto Earth, and we did that book for Feral House. And apparently, the guy who does Adventure Time, his name is Pendleton, and I can't remember his first name. Saw the book, loved it.
I know who
think
you're
he
talking
knew Martin
about. Yeah.
personally, and he asked the people involved. It wasn't just me; it was other illustrators and designers and art directors to do those Adventure Time books, which did very well. They actually, the first one was a New York Times bestseller,
It
and
looks like a really cool book. I love
it was a
Adventure
very
Time.
cool book because the one Wes was his name Wes? I think his name was Wes, maybe, like
name.
you. The wonderful thing about Mr. Pendleton and his team was that they basically let us do anything we wanted to do as long as it was suitable for a 14-year-old boy. That was the total of my brief.
Okay.
And for a 14, you can do just about anything.
I mean, is it appropriate for 14-year-olds or will their parents find it appropriate?
I think a lot of parents would actually enjoy the Adventure Time books that we did.
I bet.
Because you try to make it enjoyable for the adults involved too, because otherwise it's a one-sided process. Because very often, kids like to have their parents involved reading the book, which is a great thing, or the parent reading the book to the child. But we did that, and I've done work for Feral House on and off over the years, and then they decided to get into kids' books, and they approached me about doing a book, and to my surprise and pleasure, Feral House was very up for doing that kind of book that you have in your hand now, because I tried before to sell certain books like this to other publishers. They weren't very interested. It is different.
Why do you think that is?
I think the bit about the circular loop in the end, there's actually multiple circular loops, because I left some of the things out to simplify the story for children. I left certain things out, and parents can figure it out on their own, or they can look it up on the internet, or if they're Indian parents, so they'll explain it all to their kids. But there's multiple circular loops embedded in the book. And I think for some people, it's not for every child, obviously. I mean, I think some children wouldn't be turned on, but I think some children would be very interested in this idea.
I think so too. I think that's my favorite part, where it starts to get a
me
little
too.
trippy, and it's kind of like we're going beyond regular reality. Someone in the chat said they love the cows, and I love that. That's
Thank you. I love cows. I love cows. I love drawing cows. They are so beautiful, and no place on earth has more beautiful cows than India. Indian cows are gorgeous. They really are.
Yeah, and they're sacred.
They're sacred. That's correct. And in fact, that's part of the subtext of this story. The story of Krishna is a super popular Hindu story. He's one of the most popular Hindu gods. He's not just worshipped in India, but also in certain places in the West. And one of his fundamental things is that he takes care of cows, and that he loves cows, because to a Hindu, a cow is sacred. And so his association with cattle is super important to a Hindu. And the fact that he's naughty with these cows in the beginning is showing you how naughty he really is. I mean, and he truly is a naughty boy in most of the stories.
Yeah, he really is. As I was reading, I was like, oh, I don't know if mothers are going to want or parents are going to want their kids to follow this example, but then by the end he kind of learns his lesson, I think.
He certainly does. He does learn his lesson. The basic thing about Krishna in the Hindu religion is that he's actually the reincarnation of a god called Vishnu, and you see him in that next to final spread with the multiple heads. That's actually Krishna's real appearance. And this god Vishnu, there you go. This god Vishnu, whenever humanity or the world, whenever the existence of the world itself or the correct moral order of things is out of skew, Vishnu will reappear on Earth, or it's called an avatar, like the movie. He appears on Earth to take care of the problem and to reestablish stability in the world. And these avatars are 10 in all. The last one hasn't happened yet. And Krishna, I think, is number 8 or 7. I can't remember which number he is, but there's many of them, as you can see, and not all of them are human. There's a fish avatar. There's a wild boar, which is really cool in my opinion, one of the best. There's a lion avatar.
Wow.
At one point he becomes a dwarf. So in this case, when he becomes Krishna, it's actually it's a long story, but to sum it up, to help to help show humanity the correct moral path to not only happiness, but to a more just and well-functioning universe. I guess you
Nice.
could say that in a nutshell. It's there's better ways to say it, but if you're going to make it simple for kids, that's what it is. And in fact, Krishna in this story, he's actually adopted. And I didn't want to bring that in because I just didn't want to overload the story. It's so complicated. He's adopted. He comes from a royal family, and his uncle is the king. And of course, he's an evil uncle, evil king, evil uncle, who hears a prophecy that is one of his nephews will, or one of his nieces or nephews will kill him and overthrow him. And so instantly he runs around, trying to kill nephews and nieces. Krishna is slipped away in the middle of the night after he was born by his frightened father, the brother of the evil king. And he's given to this couple, and they're cow herders, and they live in a remote forest. And he grows up there. But when Krishna grows up, and the king finds out, he sort of finds out, he sends evil monsters and things to get Krishna. And Krishna beats him up and destroys him. He's pretty good at that. In the end, Krishna grows up after some adventures in the village, and he overthrows that king and restores moral order to that kingdom. And then later on, as an adult, he becomes a counselor to kings, and he becomes part of a vast apocalyptic battle between sort of good and evil, I guess you could say. And in the course of that, he delivers a very famous speech. And this speech is a separate Hindu scripture. It's very important in Hinduism. It's called the Bhagavad Gita. And I think if there's any Hindu scripture that Westerners read, it's probably that one. It's worth a read. It's interesting, where he explains who he really is and what he's doing on earth and how you should behave, because it's during the battle, and one of his guys that he's the charioteer to this mighty warrior who's like the super guy, like Achilles. And the warrior's looking at his enemies, and they're his relatives. He knows these guys. He's been to parties with them. He's gone to their weddings and stuff, and he has to kill them. And Krishna explains to him the true nature of the situation. And I don't want to get into it because it's super complicated. But in essence, you have to fulfill your moral duties to society, is what Krishna says. And the moral duty may be painful, but there's also another subtext under that, which is a little complicated for children. And I don't think it's really useful for kids, but also that the nature of reality is illusory. It's an illusion in certain ways. And that when you think that you've done certain things, if you look at them carefully, you haven't really done these things in a certain way. And as you can see, this is getting very complicated, and I don't want to get too much into it because I'll probably mess it up.
I think that you're translating it really well to children here. I think you mentioned like avatars and things like that, and I think maybe Jay mentioned that this could be a Star Wars connection here. I think a lot of film and James Cameron, George Lucas, people like that do you think they're borrowing from these stories?
Totally. I'm sure these guys all read the Bhagavad Gita when they were. It's the kind of thing you tend to read when you're a teenager in your college years, which is when I read it. And I do remember when Star Wars came out. I was a teenager then, and I was not. I saw it 5 times. I remember 5 times, me and my brother. And I remember my father explaining to me, he's a retired college professor now from India. And he explained to me that a lot of this was really taken from Hindu philosophy and mythology and so forth. And which made it even more fun, for us at least. But these ideas they seem to be getting more and more prevalent. And especially I've noticed, like in modern physics, I don't understand physics and all that stuff too well, but I like to pretend that I do. And now that these quantum scientists are talking about multiple universes and multiple space-time continuums and time streams, and of course you see that in Star Wars and Star Trek a lot, actually. And
And
The
that
ending of the
movie,
book,
uh,
the ending of this book actually addresses that. Uh, when at the end, when Yashoda has that dream,
mhm,
that's the framing dream of the entire story. And I didn't want to explain it too much because I don't want to bog children down with too many details. And kids can
hmm,
feel things in their heart too, you know, and they can also look it up in the library or on the internet. But
do,
as Vishnu floats
mhm.
on his ocean, and he's been floating on his ocean for millions of years, and he will still be floating on his ocean, he is dreaming our world into existence.
Wow.
And he's not just our world, but multiple worlds.
Mm.
And so at the end, when Yashoda has a dream, she's actually having a dream of her child dreaming her, is what's really happening. So
Wow.
the whole, in
That's
other
quite a
words,
dream.
it's quite a dream. And in other words, the whole book is framed within the dream of the child all the time. And the whole book is the child's dream.
Wow. That's
It's pretty
beautiful.
circular and it's pretty cool and
Yeah.
it's kind of hippie trippy. And I like it. I like
Yeah,
it.
me too.
I liked
Me
it as a
too.
kid. I loved it
Hmm.
as a kid.
Yeah, I
It's
always loved things that were really imaginative, and I saw you did some work, some illustration for a Lewis Carroll story, and I love Lewis Carroll and all of
oh, I
his
do
stuff,
too.
and I
I'm
think
nuts
it's
about
kind
him.
of like in that realm of kind of dreams becoming, blended with reality, and when you're a
Exactly,
kid, it's
exactly.
it's kind of hard to maybe even differentiate what's dream and what's real. And I find it hard myself now, and that goes into that kind of like life can be like an illusion sometimes, and maybe it is, and we don't
Well, I
know.
mean,
Maybe we're just avatars, and we're
exactly. We could be. And you know, it's like when children are smaller and when they have a bad dream,
hmm
it's difficult. And if you're a parent, you've had to comfort a child after a bad dream, and you can tell that the child is momentarily confused. Is this dream
hmm
real? Is it bleeding into my reality? And that's actually what this book is about in a certain way. In another way is the reality of dreams, the reality of reality, and it can go on and on and on. Plus, the fact that, and I think another thing about this story is the fact that Krishna, when he does this,
hmm
he becomes deep. First of all, he's frightened because the thing is, no human being is equipped mentally to comprehend infinity. You can't do it.
I don't think I can do it.
I don't think I can do it either.
I'm
And I
trying to
just
do
did
it
it.
right
I
now.
just did a bunch of drawings of infinity. We can't do it, and so you have to think about ways to approach the subject without going nuts.
I'm comprehending and whoa.
It's
Oh,
enough. It's enough.
comprehending
It's
infinity. Oof. Yeah, it's
but
quite a lot.
it's been a lot. And Krishna was a very bad boy when he did that, and he realizes it quickly.
Oh, Krishna.
Naughty Krishna, very
Yeah,
naughty Krishna. He is truly naughty.
but he likes to party.
He loves to party. Krishna really does like good food. He loves good music. And in fact, in India, Krishna is very much a god of dance, a god of
Hmm.
music. He plays the flute a lot. And as he gets
Yeah.
older later on, he learns how to play the flute beautifully. And girls are very attracted to the sound of his music. And he becomes quite a hit with the young ladies. And
Mm.
he likes to dance and party with them. And
Hmm.
the concept, another attribute of Krishna in the religious sense is his playfulness.
Sure.
It's a valued attribute in, I think, in Indian and Hindu culture and Indian culture, is playfulness as an end to itself, not just as something to sharpen your brain or something like that, or it's sharpen certain skills, but just the happiness and mental well-being that you can acquire by being playful at times.
Definitely. Yeah, that's something we talk about is that power of play, and
Power
kind
of
of
play,
how
the power of
as
imagination.
yes, and as we get older, sometimes we lose that, and it's
We do.
important to remember that. And for the kids that are listening, like hold on to that playfulness that you have in your heart, that you can really like use that as you grow older, and you can use that the rest of your life. And and I try to infuse that into everything I do,
It's very
because
important.
yeah, and it's like if you're having fun, then the people around you will have fun, and everyone has fun, and it's good.
As an adult, you can, I mean, if you decide to pick up an instrument, play with it just for fun, not to make money or to do
Hmm.
anything, but the same with drawing and so forth. It's an enjoyable
Yeah.
way to relax and possibly discover something about yourself. And another point is, I'm very lucky as an illustrator. Being an illustrator is like being a grown-up kid. It really is. I mean, drawing is play in a certain sense. Making music is play in a certain sense. Writing is certainly playfulness in a certain sense. And it's this. When I draw, I still feel like a child. I'm getting a bit old now, but when I draw, I feel like a kid again, and nothing has changed since the day that I first picked up a pencil and tried to draw that little duck wandering around. And it's the same story, it's the same business, it's always the same, and it feels good. And I want kids, when they look at this book, to feel good
Yeah.
about another culture.
That's so cool. Yeah, I definitely, that's a big part of what I'm trying to do with study hall, is like give people something to study, something to take after this show is over. Maybe this is interesting to you. You guys can go out and find this book, The Extraordinary Adventures of Little Krishna, and learn about Hinduism. And maybe it's something that you already know about and you want to learn more. Maybe it's something you want to share with your kids. Maybe it's something of a different culture that maybe you're not as familiar with. But that's really great. And where can people find this book? It's let's see, we had a link here somewhere. Um, well, Farrell House is the publisher of the book, and they were kind enough to send me this copy. And where is it here? Oh, is it up on the screen?
Is it up? I'm not sure where it's
Yep.
at right now. I know
Yeah.
Amazon and the biggies. I know all the biggies in the United States and Canada
Oh
have it
yeah.
in.
Yeah, and you can I did look that up. Yeah, you can get it on Amazon, but you can also get it on bookshop.org. So that's a great website where you can actually shop from local bookstores, but do
Yes.
it the same way you would do it through Amazon or Barnes and Noble. But you can help out the smaller bookstores that way.
Please help out the smaller bookstores and the smaller independent publishers
Yeah.
who who make books because they love them, and they
Yeah.
they want to make the readers, they want to give the readers value and not just repackaging as a Hollywood license. And small publishers like Feral House are the lifeblood of the publishing industry. It's where you're seeing a lot of the cooler books coming out now.
Yeah,
And the
absolutely.
same with the booksellers. I know my education and my background, so much of it is due to walking into weird little bookstores in the middle of nowhere, and you pick up a book and you don't find it anywhere else, and it changes your life sometimes.
Mhm. Definitely. The experience of reading is just, there's nothing that compares to it,
Nothing
and
compares to it.
it's
And nothing, and if not just for illustration, to be an illustrator, to be an artist, a truly functioning artist, you have to read a lot. It doesn't matter whether you're a musician or whatever. You have to know a bit about the culture and the world around you and what people did in the past and what they may do in the future and what they're doing now, because it's part of what you do. You're showing people realities, and you have to know what's going on to show them these realities.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Mahendra, we had a question in the comments.
Sure.
How long does it take you to write a book and or produce a children's book? This is your first children's book, right?
This is my first children's picture book. I've done
Written and
other children's
illustrated.
book, yeah, which is
Yeah,
a
so
standard 32 page.
32 pages. Yeah, that's kind of the standard. Um, and so how long did it take you to produce this one?
It took a month or two to write the copy with a lot of help from Jessica Parfrey, my editor at Feral House, who had some great ideas, because at first I went in the wrong direction, but she put me back on the right track. It took a month, roughly, to month and a half to 2 months. And then it took roughly 5 months to illustrate the book. It was a little, I would have preferred an extra month or two, But roughly, so you figure to come up with a pencil takes a day, couple of days, and to ink it doesn't take that long, and then to color it takes another day or two. So to do, let's say, 2 pages
Mm-hmm.
takes if you're pushing it fast and you don't, if your eyes are up for it, and that's the problem, is my eyes are not always up for it. I have to take a lot of eye breaks. You can do a good detailed page in about a week. But my work tends to, even my simplest style tends to be more detailed in general than a lot of guys.
Page
But
a week. When
yeah,
you say a page, do you mean like a spread? They
I
call
mean
that
a
a
spread
spread
really.
sometimes when
Two
you have
two pages.
2 pages.
Yeah,
Like,
that's what I call it.
yeah,
Yeah, spread.
like this would be a
Exactly,
spread.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you draw that, you can't draw it page by page because you got to make the pages work together well.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you'll draw it and you'll do all the pencils and then you'll realize halfway through, gosh, I didn't get this. Happened a lot. Krishna's face was a big problem for me. And the problem was because he gets older.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that
Yeah.
was a
So
hassle
you have
for
to
me.
evolve him. Mm-hmm.
It's hard to draw a face as it gets older. You have to be very careful about that. And
Yeah. Faces are
also
tough in
because,
general.
yeah, and I wanted him to look a little godlike, but not creepy, if you know what I mean. It was he was a challenge. Krishna was a definite challenge. Also, getting the right shade of blue was a challenge.
Hmm. I'll
Uh,
bet.
I,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
important. I think
blue
you
is
did a great
important.
job, though.
And furthermore, just to explain one thing to readers, why is Krishna blue? Which is a complicated question. And
Mm-hmm.
the traditional answer that I've always heard in Hinduism is Krishna is blue because he's actually a god, a super god, Vishnu,
Mm-hmm.
who's infinitely far away, as you know, right? He's floating on his ocean. And as you see things that are further away, they tend to be bluer.
Hmm.
In fact, artists have a name for that. It's called atmospheric perspective. In
Hmm.
general, the further away something is from you, all things being equal, it'll have more of a blue tint.
Wow.
The only time that is not true is when it's a snowscape. When you're seeing things in snow, the bluer it is, the closer it is to you. So in other words, Krishna is blue, and sometimes Vishnu is sometimes also portrayed as blue because he's infinitely far away in reality. Why is he really blue? I have no idea, and I don't think anyone really knows anymore.
Don't know.
It does make for a
It's a mystery.
striking look.
I think it's because he's kind of a superhero,
Yeah, it
right?
definitely makes him stand out for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And he is certainly a superhero several thousand years before superheroes were around. I mean,
It's pretty
this book
cool.
just, yeah, it just touches the edge of what this guy was doing as a kid. He was fighting serpents. He picked up a mountain. At one point, there was I think there was a firestorm coming to destroy all the cattle, and he just sucks in all the fire and then blows it out somewhere else. And kid can do a lot,
Well,
but he has to be
kids can
nice to
do a
his
lot.
mom.
Yes. Yep. Kids, obey
Be
your
nice to your
mothers
mom.
and fathers and parental guardians of all natures. Um, so you would you be interested in doing a little demonstration as I play a little more music as
That
we
sounds
kind of
like a
close
great
out the
idea.
hour? Okay,
I'm going to
cool.
do a bit of drawing.
Great. Can show people a little bit of your process. We did have a
Right.
couple people asking about that. I love it. I love the studio.
Thanks. It's a nice studio. So anyway, I've prepared a pencil drawing. It's a little hard to see, and I'll show it in a different way in a moment. And it's a pencil drawings on tissue paper, and it's taped underneath a sheet of the Denral, which is this kind of stuff. And Denral is expensive, but I love it because it's super smooth and it
Mm,
never deteriorates. It's actually kind of plastic. And I use a special ink to draw on it.
sweet.
And I'll
What
set
kind of
this
ink
up.
is it?
Always shake your ink. And if I make a mess, it's totally normal. I actually planned for it. I always
Exactly.
make a mess. I'm
Exactly.
going to switch cameras in just
Same.
a second.
Okay.
So you got your little
Cool. So
rag. Your little rag is super important. You put your Windex on the rag. Windex dissolves ink, as I learned the hard way. So you have your little pen. It looks like this. I'll switch the camera in just a second. Dip in the ink like that. Make sure it's just so. A lot of times you clean the backside of the ink very lightly with the rag. Now I'm going to turn on my super duper glasses. These are really powerful. These are like Coke bottles. I gotta see though. This. You always put a piece of paper underneath your hand so you don't get any oils or dirt on the drawing. Right now I'm going to switch cameras. How does this go? Settings. Camera. See this well. All right, here we go.
Cool. We can both go top-down camera.
Yeah, let's do it.
Now we do the work.
Yeah, now we do the work. Now I'm gonna move this light here. That's a little bit better. Yeah. And let's start with the monkey. I like monkeys. I like drawing monkeys.
I bet they're fun.
They are fun. And as people may or may not know, monkeys are very important in Hinduism. They are worshipped because a certain monkey named Hanuman helped another avatar of Vishnu called Ram. And ever since then, monkeys are worshipped because they help Vishnu in his quest to keep things going relatively well. Almost done.
So are you tracing with ink? And that is...
That's the ink on top. And
you
don't really trace, you just sort of... The pencils underneath are just kind of a guideline. Problem with inking is it always takes a while to warm up. And my hand is starting to warm up. It took a while. I should make boo-boos too all the time. Start them. Now let's get going with this elephant too. The other thing is you always got to watch out that you don't smudge your ink with your hand, which I do all the time, and you can see the marks on its paper. I'm a pretty messy guy, actually. My wife will attest. My hand is shaking too much. That's always the problem. Unhappy looking elephant. You should be happy. I don't know what's wrong. Let's see.
Thanks for being so open to sharing your process here.
Not a problem.
I know people really appreciate it.
I hope so. It's a lot of work that goes into any kind of illustration, really.
Mm-hmm.
Pen and ink tends to be laborious. You always have to re-dip. You dip and you dip and you dip. You have to redraw a line like this line is thick enough. This line went too far.
Ooh. I've never really played around with this synth before. This is kind of nice.
Let's keep going with Krishna. It doesn't start, you dip it on your hand. So, in fact, you'll see a lot of pen and ink guys, their hands will always be stained. The hand that they don't use, if you put a little ink on your hand, that block to get the ink started.
Yeah, I've actually done some work with pen and ink like that. I've got a little set. I do kind of like poetry, you know, with that type of ink, and it, you know, it kind of. I'm pretty loose with it. It gets splotchy and messy and stuff, but
oh, I know.
I enjoy it. It's a little bit more exciting visually than your average pen, and it's more fun. But it can be messy, for sure.
I find the problem with pen and ink, the number one problem is it takes a while to get warmed up.
To get the ink warmed up, or the pen?
No, to get your hand warmed up.
Oh, your hand, because it's...
Yeah. My hand shakes all the time.
It's like you have to kind of hold it a little differently than a normal pen.
Yeah, you hold it, it depends. Sometimes you get down tight on it, and sometimes you draw like this, just straight like that. Other times you use the edge like this. So with the same nib, I can make a tiny thin line, or I can make a really super, and the harder you press down, the thicker the line becomes. And that's the number one reason why I like using pen and ink instead of doing it digitally. It's the way that the nib gets, I'll just draw some. The way that the nib can be made to go in and out like that, it's a beautiful warm feeling to the line work. Trouble is, if you don't pay attention, if you space out and stop paying attention, suddenly it's all over the place. Sometimes you just let the ink do its own thing. Sometimes it blobs up and it's a disaster. Other times it blobs up and it's great. Krishna always wears little earrings. I can start to darken or loosen or whatever. A little darken. Let's give mindfulness. Sometimes I have to just put my hand against something to stop the shaking. Hand is always shaking a lot, even when I was younger.
Do you find like you have to start over sometimes?
Yes. Sometimes I'll start a page and I'll be like 15, 20 minutes into it and I realize this is not working out. And you just have to throw it away and start over again. Which is actually one of the benefits, again, of pen and ink. The materials don't cost too much. It's not so phenomenally expensive as doing paintings. Paints are quite expensive. Pen and ink is relatively cheap. You just need pencils and paper, ink. You're about set. And also, to be honest with you, some things can be fixed in Photoshop later on. Also, the angle you draw, it has a lot to do with it. You want to keep your hand at certain angles. Give me the ball. Let's get that. So do a garland of. Sometimes what you do is you wait till it's dry and you scrape at your mistakes with an X-Acto knife. Sometimes you just fix it on Photoshop.
I wish I could do that in life.
If only we could hit that, was it Control Z, Command Z?
Yeah. Exactly.
Starting to warm up. So I'm getting arthritis, so that's a problem. Anyway, that's a bit of Krishna. You know what? Let's work on a count now. Usually you go from left to right if you're right-handed. You always go from top to bottom and left to right. I'm gonna just jump
Top to
around
bottom,
a bit.
left to right.
Yeah. If you're right-handed.
Oops.
Wow. Marks you can make. They don't all have to be lines. They can be dots. They can be squiggles. Some guys use Q-tips or toothbrushes to put spatter on it. Many ways, many things you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just have an accident and you realize afterwards, my gosh, that accident was the best thing that ever happened to me.
I forgot to ask, are there any books you're reading right now?
Books I'm
Anything-
reading?
Yeah. Anything you can recommend or?
First of all, I can't read anymore too much because my eyes have had it. I have to listen to audiobooks now, which is kind of a hassle. And believe it or not, what I'm reading right now is actually Don Quixote, which is actually
Oh,
pretty good.
that's a great book.
It's a great book, and I read it. I read it a zillion years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I have
Yeah, I
to
read that
confess,
one
when
in
you're older
college.
and you read it, you get the jokes even better.
Yeah, I bet.
It's a strange book when you think about it.
Is there anything that you're learning about right now? Anything you're teaching yourself, or could be teaching someone else? Other than you're teaching us how to draw right now, I guess.
That's enough of a challenge for me. Drawing is a terrible challenge for me. It obsesses me, and I'm trying to think, what else am I doing right now? Well, I'm trying to improve my German. I know that.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. That's not going so well. I keep trying, but what can you do? And,
Yeah, I know a little German. I took German in high school.
Same here.
I have some German heritage.
Same here.
My family.
Yeah, my mom's German. So in our growing up as kids, it was a question of sauerkraut or curry,
What was that?
Sauerkraut or curry when we were growing up.
Sauerkraut and curry.
Or curry.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You could do...
I have to tell you, curry's pretty good.
For cross-cultural treat, you could make like a sausage curry.
There is a curry sausage, currywurst. I have to tell you, I don't know if you've ever had one. It's not my favorite sausage.
Which one is that? Currywurst.
If you go into a good German bakery, they'll have it. It's a sausage basically mixed with a bit of curry powder. It's you have to try it to see if you like it. I'm not too keen on it. Some people love it. It's very popular.
Currywurst.
Currywurst.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Bringing the cultures together.
Bringing cultures together. That's the whole point of it.
German and Indian.
In our family, all of us were very lucky that we had a multicultural upbringing, kind of when such things were kind of unknown. It wasn't something that was on anybody's radar, to tell you the truth. And you didn't really think about it as a kid anyway. It was just normal. Mom insisted that we do certain things a German way, and Dad would insist that we do certain things an Indian way, and something happened. And then you'd go to school, and there would be the third way, the American way, because I grew up in Virginia mostly. And you learn to pick and choose whatever you think is best from whatever culture you're exposed to at the time.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think why, and that's why it helps. I mean, you're kind of indoctrinated into your own culture, and it helps to read books about other cultures and other ways of looking at the world, and yeah.
I mean, look at this Krishna book, the way that the underlying story of the dreams and the way that reality is nested inside other things. That is an extraordinary message under any circumstances. And I find the fact that a particular culture feels it's so important that this message should be given to its children at an early age. I mean, this particular story of the dream and the mouth and the dirt is a classic story. Every Indian child knows about it. And in this particular culture, it is a culturally valuable thing to impart this information to children. Just as, for instance, in certain cultures, it's very important that, for instance, in American culture, it's very important that you learn about George Washington. Or that you learn about the American Civil War or certain things like that. Or you learn about Johnny Appleseed. That's a good example. To somebody outside of America, Johnny Appleseed is a very odd story. A guy who walks around spreading apple seeds. But to Americans, it makes perfect sense. It shows something, a core value that's important to Americans of initiative.
Yeah.
And to Indians, what is the core value of this particular Krishna story? I think the core value is that question reality, I think is kind of part of it.
Question
And
reality.
remember that reality can change to some degrees, and yet you should be aware of that. I think if in Western cultures, if people are aware of that, I think they would sometimes react in a less, what's the word, programmed manner.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes what we see, we all know this. This is a constant thing. You see something on the internet, is it real or isn't it? Actually a very classic example of how you have to question reality. Some guy posts something on the internet saying XYZ. It may put you into a bad mood, but is it even real? I don't know. You have to find out. You have to do the research.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And one other thing wanted to mention, I've heard when people eat dirt that it could be a sign that they're malnourished, and
Correct.
they're actually attracted to eating the dirt because there's minerals in there.
Right, right. I've heard that too. I think there's something to that.
Mm-hmm.
But kids love shocking their parents. I think that's what was happening here with Krishna. And the funny thing is, in all the versions that I've seen of this story, not once is it made clear whether Krishna really was eating dirt. You know what I mean? Was it the little girl just fibbing on him to make trouble? Or how little boys will do something outrageous to impress a little girl? Was he doing
Mm-hmm.
that? Who knows?
I did a lot of outrageous things to impress the girls when I was a
Everybody does
youngster.
outrageous things to impress a girl.
But I was more like I'd walk up to a girl and sing a song, things like that. I didn't eat any dirt. Kids out there, don't eat dirt.
Don't eat dirt,
Eat
kids.
eat your broccoli, eat your currywurst. Uh,
Currywurst.
uh, yeah, I sang Earth Angel because I heard it.
Earth Angel.
I had a
Earth
tape.
Angel.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's an oldie. It's a good one.
Earth Angel, will you be mine? Yeah. Anyways, that's I think that's our show though. So thanks everybody
Okay.
for watching, and thanks for joining us and learning a little bit about little Krishna and the extraordinary adventures of little Krishna.
Let me switch back. Hold on.
Mehendra
Switch
Singh.
back.
Thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for inviting me, Wes. I enjoyed it. I
Absolutely.
promise next time I do inking, it'll look better. This was a really clumsy inking session.
I thought it looked great. It looked
Not look
awesome.
great.
But that's okay. I think that when that happens, sometimes it's good. I mean, sometimes when I do music here, it's a little sloppy, but I kind of just go with it because people are okay to see that it's not easy, and you can mess up, and you can struggle a little bit. And art making it's great when we can see the final product like this and be like, wow, you really created something, and you went through those struggles and those
I went through a lot of
imperfections to
mistakes.
get to it. Yeah, exactly.
And it's
Exactly. And
perfectly
we learn from
normal.
that. Mm-hmm.
It's perfectly normal for even an experienced professional artist makes a lot of mistakes. The trick is when you're a professional artist is not to let the public see you making mistakes, or don't let them get into print. Actually, that's the real thing. As long as it
Yeah.
doesn't get into print, it's not a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah. So don't do live streams where you show your
I gotta
imperfections.
practice. I gotta practice, man.
The moral of the story is, yeah.
Moral of
No,
the story.
I hear that for sure. And I don't know why, but I just get into showing the process of building, because I think sometimes it takes forever and ever to get to that perfection, and then the perfection kind of comes out and it goes. So I sort of like to show people along the way, and they seem to
It's
appreciate it.
important. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's important for people to know, young and old, that patience will get you through so many difficult struggles. More, if you need any virtue, it would be patience. With pen and ink, as you can see, every time you dip that pen, I dip the pen 1,000 times a day. I've learned to just got to be patient. It's part of the process, and I make a zillion mistakes. Learn to start over.
Love
It'll
that.
all work out.
Yep. And Thomas Edison tried making the light bulb 1,000 times before he got it right,
Mhm.
and now look at it.
Look
Light
at it.
bulbs
Look what we're
everywhere.
living with. Yeah. Thanks
Light
to Thomas
bulbs.
Edison. Look at this.
Yeah. And then the light bulb is now like the symbol for the idea. So
Exactly.
thank
Perfect.
thank yeah. So thank you so much, Mehendra, and
You're
everybody go
welcome.
out and check out the extraordinary adventures of little Krishna on Feral House. Thanks to Feral House for setting up this connection. And yeah, I really appreciate it. I think I learned a lot today.
Thanks.
So, all right.
Anyway, thanks for laying
Everybody.
down the good beats.
Yeah.
Have a good one, Wes. Hope we
Okay,
talk
take
again
care.
soon.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely. See you on
for
the flip
sure.
side, everybody. Peace.